now, we are so privileged. This is one of my very favorite parts of the entire presentation. I love this. We have Rick Smith. He is a teacher for 27 years with the Anchorage School District. Good friend of mine in the district. I've been to his classroom. It was one of my favorite classrooms I've ever been to, in the hundreds of classrooms that I've been to. He is a rock star in the classroom. He is 1996 VP Teacher of Excellence. He is who's who among American teachers in 2002 and 2004. 2013, he was a nominee for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science. In 2015, he got the Award of Excellence in Education from our local Eagle River Chamber. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to a rock star, Rick Smith.
Thank you, Representative Reinbold. We're going to try and make these kind of quick, so 3 to 5 minutes, and each one of us are going to give our perspective from what we know and what we see in Common Core. First up, I'd like to introduce Dana DiBernardi. Dana is the Executive Director of Moose Mamas. She's lived here in Alaska for over 10 years. She's a single mom with a high school daughter and twin son and daughters in 2nd grade. She'll be giving us some examples of the challenges she's seen firsthand with her 2nd graders. Dana?
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm from Colorado. Go Broncos, Lily. Thank you. That was amazing. I'm no stranger to controversy, obviously. I feel pretty comfortable in this room. To give you a background, I run a nonprofit that's maybe a little controversial. I send and transport moose to rural areas in Alaska. I'm not a huge fan of creating more dependency by sending Red Bull and chicken nuggets. I send moose, so some people may or may not like that. Another thing I'm helping, and there's some buzzwords going around here called federal overreach. I'm currently helping John Sturgeon, the U.S. Supreme Court. We have attorneys here that may have heard about this. There's over 2,000 cases accepted by the Supreme Court, and this is 1 out of 13. It's pretty important. Look that up. Anyway, this is exactly federal overreach to me. I have a few jobs in this state. My most important job is being a parent. And as a single mom, 3 kids, I'm very frustrated. My kids are very smart kids. 4 years old, my son comes up to me and goes, "Mom, how does the back of the minivan hatch go up?" And I'm like, "Well, you know, you push this button," and he goes, "No, it's called hydraulics." He just wants to make me, look dumb. He knows, very, very smart kids. A couple months ago, I was sitting in the living room. Let me back up. My kids knew how to add and subtract before they went to school. You know, there's a lot of home, obviously, as parents, we teach them while we're cooking. 2nd grade, they're going in tears in the living room, going, "We can't figure out this simple equation, 71 minus 27. They knew this before they went to school, and I'm trying to look at the instructions on this page sent home, and I couldn't get it. I excelled in math. I went to private Christian schools my whole life. I never went to public school. We were actually allowed to pray and say God, in our schools too. And that's another issue is, how can I teach my kids? I'm a Christian, I believe in creation, and therefore I have to tell my kids, well, to get that answer right, you're gonna have to say that the earth is billions of years old, where I don't agree with that. But you better get a right answer. It's kind of tough. So I'm sitting in the living room, kids crying, frustrated, and I stop. I'm like, I can't even understand 2nd grade math. I don't understand these instructions. And I felt paranoid, but I looked behind both shoulders, make sure no one's watching. I go, "Get your pencils," how I did it, And in 4 seconds, they got it. Take away the one, care. They're like, "Whoa." They did the rest of their math. In about 4 minutes, it got everyone right. But I felt like a mathematical heathen that I'm not following Common Core rules. And it's very frustrating to me. I grew up learning math in the 70s. Here's a simple equation though. I think most of you will understand. There's what is Reinbold minus Rhine. Bold. We got a woman back here that is very bold. She not only took a position as leadership, but she's going to leave a mark in this team. I really appreciate what she's doing here. It's really important to me as a mom, and to fight against federal overreach in any capacity, especially education with our children. And I just want to, then we're trying to keep it 3 to 5 minutes. I know Amy needs to go here. Okay. Anyway, but what I look at Common Core in my family is, I feel like it's dumbing them down. We're stuck on trying to relearn simple math problems when they could have been doing this in kindergarten. And as a parent, I feel my hands are tied. I don't know how to help them. And a lot of times, there's a lot of brilliant teachers out there. They're trying to fill in the gaps, and be creative on what they're made to be, teaching our kids. But a lot of times, especially my daughter in high school, there's some teachers that have kind of given up. They're like, here's your assignment, here's your book, good luck. And they're not teaching anymore. And my daughter's coming home going, now you're the teacher. I'm like, I don't know how to teach you this, So it's very frustrating for me. But I do appreciate you guys all being here. Like I said, my #1 job is being a parent, and I hope we can solve this so we can be parents again and have authority of our children's education. So I appreciate all the speakers here and Representative Reinbold for moving this in the right direction. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana. Well, we're going to move across here. Okay, we're going to stick with the format. There's math to do. And I put down quite a bit here, so I'm going to just read mine real quick, but it will be quick, I promise. I stated I recently retired. Well, I guess I didn't. I retired last year from ASD. Some of the reasons were Common Core, with the various testing going on and that which was slated to be implemented down the road. Those were some of the reasons that I chose to get out of the profession. I've been in for 27 years. I taught my whole career in an ABC school. It was a great place to be, but things were changing, and I chose it was time to get out. As a teacher, I've seen many curriculums come and go over the 27 years I was in, and I can attest to the fact that for the last few years, the amount of time taken from the classroom for testing has grown to the point where I could see my style of teaching falling to the wayside in favor of more teaching to the tests, and that wasn't me, so it was time for me to go. To me, first and foremost, this is a states' rights issue. The federal government never should be involved in telling states how to implement national standards. I do believe we need national standards, but again, how to meet those standards, they should be up to the states to find the best way to implement them. Case in point, here in Alaska, in my opinion, our state standards were pretty good back when we had No Child Left Behind. It wasn't the greatest, but I thought we were pretty good. But unfortunately, the testing that was going on across the country, it left Alaskan natives at a disadvantage. Case in point being that the wording was set for kids who lived in cities, not for bush villages. So this nationally normed test was actually a downfall for parts of Alaska. It just wasn't set up for us. That again goes back to state standards instead of a national norm. I'm also very concerned about what Common Core is coming from. As we've seen, Bill Gates Foundation has been dumping millions upon millions into bringing Common Core into our school systems. Bill is not now, nor ever has been trained in education as far as I know, holds no degrees in education, yet for some reason feels he and his foundation should be telling teachers and parents how to better educate children. Again, I think we need national standards, but it should come from educators who know what they're talking about, not the people in the Federal Department of Education, who many, again, have never been educators. Think of it as if I came to your job without any formal or informal training, proceeded to tell you a better way to do your job. After running this new way to do your job down your throats, I then proceed to work with friends to print up new manuals that will follow my line of thought for your job. I'll also make money from the various manuals and computer testing that my new way will require you to perform your job. Also, you as a supervisor, your pay will also be tied to these new tests that your employees will be taking. If they don't do well on the tests, we're going to cut your pay. And that's the way as a teacher I was feeling. Gates, Pearson Publishing, they're in bed together. We've seen that today. I believe it's to make money off a system of curriculum that schools have to buy to get their students to do the Common Core testing. Again, we've seen this, and I apologize, I'm going over a little bit of it. Check into which different Middle Eastern countries have financial partnership in Pearson testing. You may find that real interesting. Do the research. Is it any wonder then when you start finding names like Libya, Qatar, Saudi Arabia involved, that we keep hearing so much about the religion of peace, Islam, showing up in the different grade levels? That was a real problem for me. From the materials I've seen published already across the country, the slant of the new Common Core curriculum is very left-leaning and very much headed in a socialist direction. We see less reading of real history, that there is in there. In many cases, they're starting to show up with the perception the United States is a bully in the world, power-hungry, and our economy a backward way of thinking. Literature is being watered down to the point where students are now not reading entire books anymore. They get excerpts. And from what is seen, the Common Core curriculum is going to take even that bit away so the students can be reading from informational texts instead of literature. I could go on and on about the math, but I won't. As a teacher, seeing the varied standardized tests administered over the years, I've gotten a lot of chances to see the types of questions asked by my students. The AMP testing has questions that I took to be slanted in a very subliminal way to begin forming students' opinions early toward a government-approved mindset. And looking over the shoulders of my students on the AMP practice tests, I stress practice tests, because none of us, teachers or parents, can actually see what the children are being asked on the real tests at all. As teachers, we had to sign off that we will not try to look at the tests while the booklets are open. We had to sign, or we would be in trouble with this. I saw questions that had no need to be in a test for students. One such question, this is in a practice test, talked in a slanted format about affordable health care and how this was a good thing for the population of the country. I taught 6th grade. This is an inappropriate question in an elementary school standardized test. In looking at how much the curriculum and testing has cost for states across the country, and to hear so many of them trying to get out of Common Core now that they're burdened with the cost as the federal money dries up, why are we, the state of Alaska, trying to hold on to such a costly and less than adequate curriculum? My question is, with the economy of Alaska changing once again, we need to start tightening our fiscal belts more and more. How are we going to afford to pay for the heavy-handed, top-down education system that more and more Alaskans are against? I think most people agree that parents should have more say in what their kids' education is. In Common Core, I see more and more of this being taken away, and more areas brought into the classroom that should be talked about and taught at home instead. Unfortunately, so many of today's parents don't want the responsibility of being parents. So the classroom gets to do it for them. And by giving that ability to control what your child hears or sees, the classroom is ripe for the taking for the powers that be, to pump the minds of the children with what they want to feed them, not what the parents would hope they are receiving. In Common Core, we're seeing a lot more views that swing away from former family values that help make our country the strong, economic, powerful country we used to be. I believe this will be a downfall in our country. And lastly, we live in an important time. Our country is at a crossroads, both economically and as fundamentally and foundationally. I, for one, will continue to speak out against the government and the people who are running it into the ground. Being a historian, like the Nazi Germany, the fascist Italy, communist Soviet Union, China, Cuba, or any number of dictatorial states around the world today, a government that grows so big that it feels it is above the law, or that feels the citizens are not smart enough to know what is best for themselves any longer, is a government that needs to be replaced. A government that feels it is in the business of training the children to prepare for their place in the world over the objections of parents is a government to be frightened of. Do your own research, ask questions of people in government, open your eyes, learn the truth, share it, and speak out. Thank you very much. Up next, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, long time friend. This is Candace Young. Candace is a recently retired teacher. We both went out at the same time. We just said, that's it. Yep. She started teaching in 1977 in Texas and then moved here, where she taught kindergarten for 19 years in Birchwood ABC Elementary. Candace received the BP Teacher of Excellence Award in 2005, also the Excellence in Education Award from the Eagle River Chamber of Commerce as well in 2005. Candace Young.
Well, good afternoon. Did a lot of thinking about this presentation to you. The speakers today have been absolutely phenomenal. Any of you I would like to have as a superintendent or a principal. I think it would be a nice change, a great change. I'm retired. I retired when Rick did this last spring, and there are many reasons. The Common Core is a real danger to your children, and it is a real boot on the necks of the teachers. It's not that teachers don't need guidance, it's not that we don't need some kind of a curriculum, but we need to be able to think, and we need to be able to use our creative talents also with our children. And one of the basic reasons I left was because they sucked it out of me. I didn't have anything left that was me. I was told what to do, and most of my, well, at least 50% of my time ended up to be documenting and testing and recording. And so for a few minutes, I'm going to talk about what happened to my experience with testing kindergartners who are 5 years old. One came into school last year who started out at 4 years old. And I want you to imagine that you have a 5-year-old coming into class for the first day, and they are getting a test. So I'm going to go through the 2 tests that I did throughout the year. And I want you to know that after about the 3rd year of doing this, I had enough. And I'm done. And if you go to the principal and trying to state your objections, the slide earlier that showed the teacher trying to protest, and there was a statement underneath that said, pick your hill you're going to die on. That's the way it is. If teachers now protest, or if they have differences from what's coming down. And the principals don't make the decisions, it's coming from the admin, and from admin it's coming from the state. I don't know where it comes from, but teachers do not have much input. So I'm going to start with the first test, and this correlates with the report card. Anchorage developed a new report card for kindergarten students consisting of 34 standards. 10 of these were social emotional skills. An example of a social emotional skill that kindergarten students were graded on 4 times a year states, under the skill of self-management, quote, I can set and achieve goals that will make me more successful. I've got news for you. When you get kindergartners 18 to 25 in your class, your basic goal is, can they function? Can they sit for 5 or 10 minutes? And will they not scream out loud when a toy is taken from them? These are serious issues in kindergarten. For the report card, each academic skill is performance-based. This means that the kindergartner performs the skill on a one-to-one basis with the teacher or TA while the rest of the children are in the class. The number right or wrong are compared to a detailed rubric that allows the score to be changed to a decimal number between 0.0 and 4.0 in 0.5 increments. After this procedure is done for all 34 standards, and I do this on my own time, the decimal numbers are inputted into small, minuscule squares on the computer. Ladies and gentlemen, for 4th quarter, I inputted 612 grades into my computer for 5-year-olds. Scoring the child, analyzing the rubric, and the computer recording were not done during class time. I have children in there, and I'm still trying to find time to teach. I have long believed that the individuals who design these assessment procedures should be required to come into the classroom and try to do this process themselves. I welcome Bill Gates. I welcome anybody from the Department of Education, and I really encourage my principal to come in. I never saw him. Common Core assessment mandated Ames web testing. By the way, Ames web testing comes from what company, Mr. Smith? Pearson, thank you. For kindergarten, there were approximately 5 tests for reading and 5 tests for math. Now, I do the report card and all that scoring 4 times a year. The Ames web testing was done 3 times a year. Now, I want you to picture a page for a 5-year-old that has 10 rows of numbers or 10 rows of letters with 10 letters or numbers in each row. That's about 100. The child is supposed to track each letter or number on each line without going off track, and in 1 minute do whatever the performance objective is. For example, identifying all the letter names, identifying and saying all the letter sounds, identifying the number names as fast as. They're 5 years old, and the first time you do it, they even haven't had one class day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is ridiculous. And for our school, there's 3 ABC schools in this district. We teach reading differently. Our kindergartners are reading by the end of the year. And so we do not teach letter names. It's not in our curriculum. We only start right out with letter names. But guess what we test 3 times a year in Ames Web and 4 times for the report card? We were mandated to test letter names. So we have to go back and teach something that's not even in our curriculum for Birchwood ABC or for the ABC schools. And they tested other skills in Ames Web. There was a total of 10 tests. I then have to compute those numbers, the tests, what parts are right or wrong, which answer, for each test into the computer. The computer then generates the results on a graph system that's called bars and whiskers, with the individual students identified in relation to the rest of the class in the school. I have had parents look at these results at a conference, take the piece of paper, throw it in the trash and say, "Mrs. Young, how's my kid doing?" That's how important it is, because part of the testing is not even what we teach. Part of the reason parents respond in this manner with Ames Web testing is because it tests on letter identification that our Spalding reading program finds unnecessary. We begin teaching with sounds immediately, and children can begin reading in October. Other reading tests in Ames Web are testing children on basic reading skills our students have mastered at Birchwood by the time we give the second Ames Web test in the winter. Our kids need to be tested on actual reading ability. It may not be true for every school, but it's true for the ABC schools. I voiced my opinion to my principal repeatedly that these tests were developmentally inappropriate and that they did not show accurately where our students were in reading skills. The answer always was, "Mrs. Young, this is a universal screening. We will use it." And so I left the office and looked forward, not at all, to the next testing period, because it took about 2 weeks to get this done for the report card alone. The final point is that after working on a detailed report card 4 times per year, the Ames web testing became the most important resource for determining progress for each student, but I still had to do the report card also. Our school did not employ the standard common curriculum, and the results did not seem to matter. Common Core worked on the philosophy that one size fits all, and I assure you that in teaching it does not, and in learning it does not. If every teacher taught exactly the same way, they might as well get robots in here. We're individuals and we have unique ways of teaching, but we get to the end goal the same. And my teaching partner will tell you that she and I were totally different. but we reach the same goals. And there's somebody in the audience nodding her head going, amen. Teachers have no power to change the curriculum or the basic philosophies of a school. We just do not have a voice. I was very blessed at Birchwood. I embraced the philosophy and the curriculum, and our kindergartners soared. They loved learning and they were reading. But every few years there was a new principal, maybe not so crazy about our philosophy, and some new ideas were slowly implemented. And then Common Core was implemented, and my actual teaching time with the children decreased drastically. Test more, document more, report more, and slowly the joy I had teaching began to wane. I was a data analyst and a data entry clerk. And that's it. I retired. You guys, every single person, every single adult, I don't care if you have children or not, we need to fight this. It is extremely dangerous. I have 5 grandchildren, and I don't want them to be exposed to this. The math is totally, give me a word. Totally, he can't give me a word that's nice. And what I'm trying to tell you is that the curriculums are not all the same within even one school district. We can't all be doing a universal screening when we're not teaching some of those items. And I thank you all for coming today, and for the speakers again. They were absolutely awesome. And Laura, I don't know how we can all ever thank you for what you've been doing. It's tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Lastly, we have Amy Demboski. Amy is a longtime Alaskan, having graduated from Chugiak High School in 1994, my alma mater also, but mine was way long before that. She's married, has 2 children. Their daughter, a recent graduate of both Amy's and my alma mater. They have a son who's a freshman at Chugiak now. With her children in the system, she's well aware of what the ASD is using as curriculum. She's very active in the Anchorage community, serving in community councils, municipal commissions, and the Eagle River Sleeping Lady Lions Club. And as you know, she's currently a member of the Anchorage Assembly. Thank you for coming today, Amy Demboski.
Use the one break cast, turn it to the light, turn green.
I'm not an IT person. Can you hear me now? Okay. Let's try this one. Can you hear it?
Turn it on, so it has a green light.
I'm a politician, not an IT person.
Oh, I got it to work. Oh my gosh. Maybe that's why they didn't elect me, huh? No, just kidding. So in typical Amy fashion, I just kind of shoot from the hip and speak very candidly and from the heart. And I didn't update my webpage. My son's a sophomore now, so we won't tell him we call him a freshman. My daughter Kennedy, she is a sophomore at UAF. My son Riley, he's a sophomore at Chugiak. And I have to tell you, my first glimpse at there was something wrong with the Anchorage School District was when I got the SBA scores for my son when he left 4th grade. And you get them about 3 weeks after school gets over. And I remember he had all O's and S pluses. And I looked at his SBA scores, and after I talked to all his teachers, they remarked how great he was, what a sweet kid, oh, he's so attentive, he's doing great. I get his SBA scores, and he was testing in math and English at a 2nd grade level. And this is at the end of 4th grade. But his report card reflected he was one of the best students in the class. So as a parent, I realized there was a problem. And for over a year, I put him in a specialized math tutoring program. We did math and English 6 days a week, extra work on top of all of his homework. And then, so I've never been a fan of everyday math, but what the Anchorage School District has done is they have gotten rid of everyday math and they doubled down on the Common Core. They have doubled down. And so when I got elected to the Anchorage Assembly, it was a couple of years ago when the Alaska standards were coming through. And every year we have to have 4 joint meetings with the school board and the assembly. And I looked at the superintendent and I said, okay, wait a minute, because I had started doing some reading on Common Core, and I knew I didn't like it. But I looked at the superintendent in this meeting and I said, is this Common Core? Because it wasn't called Common Core. It's always trust but verify, right? Never let your government go unchecked. Trust but verify. And he said, oh no, it's not Common Core. This isn't Common Core. And this is on the record. It's all recorded. And so at that moment I said, okay, because I know we had had a little bit of a discussion about it already starting up in the community. And I let it go. My mistake. My mistake. So back in October-ish, I look at my son's progress report. You know, he gets good grades. I check it about every month, month and a half. And I noticed the Anchorage School District spent a month on Islam. 1 month. 1 month. And I looked at the assignments and stuff. I'm gonna pull up my phone here for a second because I have the description of the curriculum here. And this is how they describe it. Of course, immediately what I did was I said to my son, bring me your book, I want to read it. Oh no, Mom, we're not allowed to bring the textbooks out of the classroom. Really? Are you shitting me? I can't what? So I call the curriculum department immediately and I say, I want to see what the lesson plan is. Give me your syllabus. You know, when we're in college, we get that in the beginning. I didn't get a detailed syllabus for my kids' high school history class. So I got, you know, this is the narrative from the Anchorage School District. Okay, so as you go under it, the lessons are designed to go along with a PBS program. And it says, an introduction, Islam, Empire of Faith, lesson topics, an introduction to Islam and Muhammad, the fascinating world of Islam, creating textile museum piece from the Islamic Empire, great thinkers and accomplishments of Islam fact cube, Renaissance man, and comparison poster, right? And I'm like, okay, one of my degrees is in history. I like to think that I'm diversified. So let's think, okay, if you're teaching Islam, I want to see Christianity, I want to see, you know, Buddha, I want to see different types of cultures all being represented because I always teach my kids to be critical thinkers. And what I mean by that is challenge me. If you disagree with me, make me back it up with facts. In there, nowhere have I found in 9th grade history the fact that they're teaching anything to do with Christianity. If you're teaching the pillars of Islam, where are the 10 Commandments? That's what I want to know as a parent. They're not there. So moving on, that's what I started realizing. I started talking to Laura. I'm like, holy moly, I am behind the train here. I need to get on board and see what's going on. That's why I'm here today. And I'm trying to learn. But the other thing let's segue now. So we know in the Anchorage School District, we know from what Laura showed us, what the letters from Commissioner Hanley, we know what the superintendent told me, we know they're all bunk, right? We know that now. We know it's here. So what are we going to do about it? Follow the money. This has nothing to do with education. I will tell you right now, as a politician, which I am not, I'm a public servant, as somebody who sits in public office, this is about two things, and two things only. It's about money, and it's about power. It's those that want to make a buck, like Bill Gates, and it's those who want power, like politicians. So, as parents, we have to question. And that's why I say, so what do you do about it? And I'll make it really quick. And I'm not vilifying, I am not going to vilify everyone who sits in public office because I think there are great people that step up to serve, that want to make sure we're educated well. But if we have teachers that teach to a much higher level, why are we dumbing it down and not letting them do that? Why are we shackling our educators? It doesn't make any sense. So what do we do? What do we do? You have to get involved. This April we're going to have a number of good candidates running for school board. That's the first place you start. Within the municipality of Anchorage, the school board runs the curriculum. The only thing the assembly gets to do is to vote up or down the budget. But I'm telling you, when those assembly elections come, you have to elect people that are willing to vote no, because that is a mighty opportunity if their budget gets rejected. Now, it was almost history making. This last budget cycle for ASD, we had 4 or 5 assembly members vote no on the entire budget. It's the first time I've ever seen it. And it had nothing really to do with Common Core. It had to do with, runaway spending. But the point is, that's where you have to start holding the line. It's at elections. And there has to be, the way you're going to attack Common Core, politically speaking, is you have to make it relevant to people's lives. Because I can talk to people all day long and blue in the face. They don't understand the nuances of Common Core, what we've learned here today. They don't understand the nuances of, the global warming, which I think is a religion that has been shoved into a lot of the curriculum. But what I can tell you, as I look around and I talk to people, the one thing that will get people upset is if they start learning how they're data mining your kids. Because frankly, when I start hearing about biometrics, and I start hearing about facial recognition software that is watching your kids while they're taking tests, that can take fingerprints or whatever, those are the things that are going to resonate with people. So from a political standpoint, and this is something Lora could do, but it's something, on a city level, I could do it in different fashion. We need legislators that are willing to stand up and say, you know what, not only can you not institute biometric software into our schools, you can't purchase it, and any legislator who votes to do so has committed a crime. You have this, you see, and this is how it works in politics. You don't have the money, but when you can connect with somebody so overwhelmingly, and that means parents, and when it comes to your kids, you have to help them understand what they're not telling you. And that's why I say, we can talk all day long about how hard the math is. I mean, I went through everyday math, and it's ridiculous, and Common Core is it's just as bad. But the fact is, what would get to parents, if you tell people that when your kid's sitting there taking a test, somebody's recording it, and facial recognition, the data is not secure as we've learned today. These are the things that people are going to understand and they're going to care about, and then they're going to start saying, okay, wait, let's open this book and see what's in it. So, as I have come today and had the opportunity to listen to the speakers, first of all, I have to say, nobody could really follow Lily's shoes. You were amazing. It was a great opportunity, and Mary was amazing too. But I will say, if you haven't done it, if you really want to be scared, we've heard her story today. But if people don't listen to what happened in China, my first glimpse, I read a book called The Red Flower of China. I highly recommend you read that book. It was the rise of Mao and how they used the education system to reform society. It was an incredible read. And when I hear a firsthand account of somebody who lived through it, it was really, it basically validated it. So that's why I say this is not about educating kids. This is about power. And the people that are pushing it are the ones that are looking for the money. It's about power and money. And it shouldn't be the case. When we're talking about educating our kids, we are Americans. We value individuality and freedom and liberty. And the ability to do that and not stifling teachers to be able to foster that creativity. So, the only thing I can really say is go back, put the pressure on your legislators, because it's not just the principals. The principals take their marching orders from the school board. The school board takes their marching orders from the voters. So that's why I say get after it. I'll be there every step of the way. I'm quite frankly, I'm very glad that my kids are a little bit older and didn't have this from kindergarten. But at the same time, I think it's been something I've been battling and trying to deprogram every single day the last couple of years, and it's been a challenge. So good luck, and we're all in it together. So battle on.
Thank you, Amy. Have to have the touch. Thank you again. I want to thank all three of them that came up and talked. And again, thank you very much for your attention. And I'll hand it back to Representative Lora Reinbold.